Twice in all the time that I have been researching stories and cases online and calling and texting and getting the information, the juicy little tidbits behind the scenes on these crimes that I report on. Twice have I been completely dumbfounded at the end, not being able to make heads or tails of the crime or the person who perpetrated the crime itself. This is one of those cases. Today, we're taking a look at Sabrina Limon. Sabrina Limon is a 37-year-old woman from Bakersfield, California, who married her high school sweetheart, Robert Limon, in Arizona. Shortly after their marriage, they moved to the Bakersfield, California area, where Robert got a job with the Santa-Fye Railroad and was making pretty decent money. Shortly afterwards, they would start their own family, having 2 children. Now, was, and of the 7 deadly sins, this lady has 5. They're guaranteed 5 of the 7 deadly sins. In case you don't remember what the 7 deadly sins are, they are lust, gluttony, greed, sloth, wrath, envy, and pride. She has 5 of the 7. All right, so from Arizona onward, I'm not going to go into her childhood, because, well, mainly because her entire family, they couldn't tell a story correctly if they had to. Everyone in this case, all they did was lie. So I have to go by what I was able to piece together from multiple different interviews and conversations, and along with what was on the internet, to actually, well, Sabrina Limon got tired of her husband Robert and wanted him dead. And she made a couple of attempts to poison him to death, once going as far as putting arsenic in banana pudding, putting it in the refrigerator, knowing that it was his favorite pudding in the world, and that he'd most likely find it and eat it. So, but she actually backed out of one, and that one she left there, but he didn't eat it. For some reason, it was just faith, I guess, that he didn't go into the refrigerator that day and find the arsenic-laced pudding and eat it. So Sabrina had a part-time job as a sampler. These are the people who you'll see in the supermarket handing out samples of a new product, like food, or it might be tissues or laundry detergents. But she worked mainly at a local grocery store, a Kroger's, and she also worked at Costco handing out samples. One day, while working her part-time shift at the Costco, yes, 4 hours is all she worked, in bits and pieces here and there. She really did not want to work or exert herself. So there is the sloth, because she definitely has talent and she has an education. She just decided never to use it for anything at all, except for to try to plot and get away with the murder of her husband. So back to her job that day. She was handing out samples, and she met a firefighter, Jonathan Hearns, who was 11 years younger than her. He came up and struck up a conversation with her, and she knew right away, according to her own words, that Jonathan was a fresh of breath air and someone that she could see spending her life with. Now, don't forget, she's married. She's got a husband at home. But it didn't stop there. See, what you also need to know is Sabrina was into the local swingers club. She was a swinger, and she didn't necessarily go with Robert. Robert attended 3 meetings and 1 sexual encounter with another couple, and then decided he didn't want to go anymore. Sabrina would complain to her friends and family that Robert had become addicted to hardcore smut, which is pornography, on the internet, and didn't really want to go to these meetings anymore. Now, enter Jonathan. Jonathan was a perfect kid. He was in his mid-20s at the time. He was attractive. He took care of himself physically, and he was really up for going to meetings where he got to meet other women who were definitely up for having intercourse with a stranger. So, yeah, he started attending the swinger meetings with Sabrina as Sabrina's partner. And everyone within the swingers community knew that this wasn't her husband, this was someone that she was involved with because they had already met her husband. So Sabrina put her plan into action. And shortly after she met Jonathan, she started manipulating him and telling him stories that were completely false to make Robert out to be this horrible, horrible father and husband. She went as far as telling him that Robert beat her, hit her, was going to take everything that she had spent her entire life working hard to acquire, when it was actually the opposite. Robert was the one that worked and she sat around at the house. She was and became the typical California girl with the golden blonde hair, bright white teeth, and enhanced body parts. Robert he pulled in extra shifts in the rail yard whenever she needed something else, or she decided that she needed, more money for, another trip or a vacation, or she would manipulate Robert into believing that the children needed money for dental care and his insurance didn't cover it. He was naive in several areas, but he believed her. Unfortunately, he never saw what was coming. So one day, in 2014, Jonathan Hearns went to Robert's work to an industrial area near the railroad tracks, shot him several times, and killed him right then and there. Walked away, put the gun in his coat pocket, and never looked back. But unfortunately, fortunately, Jonathan has a conscience. As soon as he did it, it started to eat him apart from the inside out. He could not live with the fact that what he'd just done. When the police showed up that day to start their investigation, here lies next to the tracks Robert Limon, dead from several gunshot wounds. The police quickly were baffled by who would want to hurt him. He owed no money. He paid cash for just about everything that he ever acquired. And on top of that, he was well liked within his community. He had no enemies. And it was completely baffling to the police. So when they went to go, break the bad news to Sabrina, the crocodile tears started, and both of the detectives noted in their notes on the case that neither one of them believed that she was actually sorry that he was gone. As Jonathan Hearns actually said in his statement, because he turned state evidence against Sabrina, he said, Bob had to go. There was no way around it. Sabrina would not go on, and I wasn't going to share her anymore. I didn't want to share her with the Swingers Club. I certainly didn't want to share her with Bob. So Bob had to go. So over the course of their trial this past year, Sabrina pulled some very questionable legal maneuvers, firing her legal team, hiring another one, firing them. Then she was sentenced for the crime, found guilty for the crime, and before the judge could put down the sentencing against her for this crime, she fired her attorneys again, and then brought a new attorney in and tried to argue afterwards, which was completely wrong. It's not the way that the court works, but she tried to argue that, again, she needed a new trial, and that the state, made errors, and the police interrogation was rough, and that the statements made by Jonathan were false, and that they could easily be, taken out of context. That the judge didn't care. He put down his sentence. Brownlee put down his sentence of 25 years plus 16 months for her other crimes that she was convicted of in this case. She was given a life term, which means she must serve the natural life term before she could be ever eligible for parole. So, what did Jonathan get in this case? Jonathan, for turning state's evidence, was found guilty of manslaughter. He got 25 years plus 4 months with no life life term on it, on his sentence at all, which makes him eligible for parole in about 14 to 16 years, all dependent upon how much good time he actually earns. Now, so Sabrina and Robert had 2 children. A statement released by the aunt of both of the children said they both knew, both of the children knew eventually, just like everything else in Sabrina's life, eventually she would get tired and she would, be done with Robert, and Robert would have to go. Her own children knew eventually Mom was going to do something to get rid of Dad. Their entire lives. Sad. Robert Limon, working man, father of 2, doing everything he could for his family. And his California beach bum wife decided it wasn't enough, that she needed to kill Robert. What'd she get out of it in the end? Nothing. The children got the insurance money. They got the house. They got the cars. They got it all. Mom, nothing. All right. That's it. So, I really do appreciate you struggling through this video with me. As you can probably hear, I have the flu, and I have been sick now for a week, and with no end in sight. I'm trying to get rid of this because we got videos I need to finish editing and shoot. Plus I got the live stream this coming Sunday. Don't forget, live stream this Sunday, 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time in the U.S. So if you go into Google, put in 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and ask England, time difference, or Scandinavia. It'll tell you, Google will tell you what the difference is in the hours, and tell you what time it is there when it's 1 o'clock here. Don't forget to check the description down below for the links to the Fan Gear store and to Patreon. I'm working on the Patreon still. I haven't set up any perks for that yet. So if you want to join Patreon and never get billed,